Losing Randy followers. First of all, I keep getting messages that people think it sounds like I'm dying by the name of Losing Randy. So if y'all have some better ideas for a name for this little YouTube channel, please leave them in the comments down below. And maybe we can find something that doesn't sound like I'm dying. And losing is slowing down, but it's not gaining, so that's good. This video is going to be kind of a little different one too. It has nothing to do with anything that I've filmed before. A while back I was asked to speak with a friend at the RDH Under One Roof, which is basically a national dental hygiene conference down in Dallas. And the topic, or the name of the program of ours, which was a two-hour deal, was Deeper Than Black and Blue, about mental abuse and gaslighting and stuff like that. And I was presenting with a friend. She was the main person. We had a 2-hour spot, and Debbie Zafiropoulos, Debbie Z, and you'll meet her in this, was the main speaker. And we didn't get the first portion where she spoke, but she does speak after I do on this. So here's the deal on public speaking. I'm not good at it at all. I was awkward. I looked at my notes. I was nervous. I had a silly, stupid habit of any time I would get nervous of doing this with my tongue. And there was a couple times there in the speech when I basically kind of choked up and thought I was going to bawl. So, my story, when you get into gaslighting and mental abuse and things like that, you know, that's some deep stuff. And I just basically told our story. I know, obviously, I have 4 daughters. Chelsea's the only one that has her life public, so I didn't talk about anything with my other 3 daughters. But and there was no names mentioned or anything like that, but most everyone knows her story. And what I did was just relate the story of how we got on Teen Mom and what was going on in our life at the time, and what I maybe could have done better. Certainly I had spots where I failed or enabled or anything like that, you know. So, but anyway, it was my first public speaking gig ever, except for kindergartners. So, tune in. Let me know what you think. I'm sure if I ever do it again, I think they asked us to go back the next year. I think I can get it polished up a little more. But, hey, give it a look. Give it a listen. Let me know what you think. Think of some other names for this goofy YouTube channel other than Losing Randy, since I cover a lot more stuff now anyway. So drop them in the comments down below, and we'll see what we can do. All right, here's a awkward speech given by myself and a very well given speech by Debbie Z, and I'll put her contact info in the show notes underneath the video. And maybe some contact information or some numbers for 1-800-DUMBS helplines, things like that. Anyway, hey, sorry this is kind of bouncy. This is a crappy old road, but tune in. Let me know what you think. Thanks a lot.
I'm very humbled and very happy that he agreed last year to co-present with me and share his experience. This is your first RDH Under One Roof. He was like, my first dental hygiene convention. Yeah, first dental hygiene convention. He's nervous, but he doesn't look nervous, right? I told him, they're gonna love you. It doesn't matter, right? It's just sharing, it's caring, it's loving. So we're gonna share some things up on stage, and Doctor's gonna talk about this segment I call Rescue, because we just got rid of all the negativity, and I'm gonna get it because I don't want to stay on this side. I don't want you guys to be positive, but we're going to talk about rescue, how we're going to help ourselves and how we're going to help others with our experiences and some tools that we're going to give to you, okay? So go ahead, Pop. I'll be right there.
So I'm not nearly as polished. I've got my notes because I have things I don't want to forget. So 2 or 3 years ago, I went to Claudia Lovato's Morado Speaking Academy, ASV. And my intention was to become a better communicator with my team, my patients, and just to become a better speaker in those situations. And I met, and first a great shout out to Morado Speaking Academy. If you ever want to be a public speaker of any type, that's the place to learn. And I met Debbie and I met Claudia, and we all shared our stories. And being a speaking academy, they encouraged me to speak. And here I am. So I have a story, is basically where I'm at. I'm a dentist, I'm a father, I'm a grandfather. I've been a dentist for 30 years, rural South Dakota, plugging away 4.5 days a week, just doing what we do. I've got a great team, a small team. It's me and 4 ladies and me. I'm grammar police out here. And I never really thought I would be speaking on a stage. This was not my goal. I just thought I'm just gonna be there, and that's what was gonna be the end. Do that, have some fun, retire, and that was the end of the story. So I'm not a beginner in public speaking. I'm speaking to probably some crowds that are far harder than this. I admit they're kindergartners. Children's Dental Health Month for 30 years, I'd go speak. This would have been one of my grandsons. A little head to the left with the ear and blonde hair. He didn't want to come up and stand with me. So that's as high up as I got in my speaking world. So I'm going to start the story in 2009. So I was a divorced father. I was recently remarried to my lovely wife, Rita.
10-year anniversary this
10-year anniversary tomorrow. So I have 4 daughters. She has a son and a daughter. My 2 oldest daughters and her children were all, I guess Jesse was still at home, but we're out of the house, and my 2 younger daughters were living with us. And it begins with my youngest daughter, Chelsea. This is the story. She came up to me and said, "Dad, I'm pregnant." So the emotions that a parent goes through on a time like that there's a lot of different emotions. You got panic, you got disappointment, despair. I'm a pretty chill guy, but at that point I was pretty certain that I failed as a parent. I failed as a father. I had no doubt that as a family that we could raise this child, we could help her raise this child. But I knew that no matter what situation, there's challenges for a young parent, a teenage parent. In the best of circumstances, this baby's going to have 2 loving parents that stay together and raise a child in a good home. In the worst of circumstances, lives fall apart. And that's the way our story went. So this is a big deal for us. And then came MTV. So Chelsea mentioned to me that there was this new show on MTV called 16 and Pregnant. It was a 1-hour documentary and she wanted to be on it. She said, "I'm going to apply." And I said, "Well, knock yourself out, because what's the odds? We're in South Dakota, nothing going to happen from it." So 3 weeks later, I'm talking to MTV producers. And they liked her story. There's so many different stories of teen pregnancy. Every aspect of life, every socioeconomic level, everything. And our story they did not have yet, so they decided it would be a good story. So she filmed it. We did the 16 and Pregnant, and it went with her pregnancy and then having her little baby Aubrey, and the difficulties. It was a 1-hour show, which means 44 minutes minus commercials, and it was a one-off. And we did it, and we thought, well, that turned out pretty well, and then it was done, and we went on with our lives. And then they chose her to be in a spin-off series called Teen Mom 2, which was more of a seasonal show. 12 episodes and such. And there's benefits to being on a show like that, but we were also forced to address the dark side of her relationship with the baby's father, who, as Debbie did, I will not name. It was at this time that the existence of gaslighting came to me. I didn't know the term, I'd never heard of it, and it didn't happen to me, but it happened to my daughter, and I saw it. And I saw it a lot. So I'm not here to bash any one person, but her story is public, so that's the portion that I'm going to cover. So her partner would display all the signs of gaslighting and mental abuse. He would cheat, lie, disappear, and then convince it it's all her fault. You know, I wouldn't have done this if you wouldn't have done that. I would be nicer if you'd done that. He would always promise that it would never happen again, things would change, you know. He would blatantly lie and tell her that what she thought she saw or what she thought happened did not happen. You know, she saw it with her own eyes, but yet it didn't happen. He definitely started to isolate her from her friends, her family, and he used to say some mean things. I mean, really mean things. And I'm not going to read that to you, but that was a text that he sent to her on the show. And I can't remember where we were at dinner somewhere, and she called me, and she was just, that one crushed her, as many did. Through it all, though, he convinced her that nobody else would have her. He was pretty much being a hero just for keeping her around, because he could do so much better. So I'd get the calls from her in the middle of the night, the panic, the sobbing, crying about whatever it was he did that weekend. And this went on for years. You know, she wanted the fairy tale ending, just like we all want the fairy tale ending. But there's so many times that we thought, I think we got it. You know, I think maybe we overcame it this time. And when I say we, I certainly mean her. But we were all trying to help also. We thought we had success, but like it's an addiction. She would go back, relapses occur. And often we would think, how can this be happening? She's a smart girl. She's a beautiful girl. She's young, happy, high school, vivacious. I had a great group of friends. How did this happen? Well, it's not specific to any socioeconomic class. Rich, poor, straight, gay, black, white, brown, male, female. We're all potential victims. And you probably could not get more help than what we had access to. She had good family. Certainly I was divorced, but support from every aspect of the family. Not to mention millions of people watch a show, millions of followers on her social media, all telling her, what are you doing? Get away. And it just wasn't that easy. Through the show, there it is. I did meet a good friend, Dr. Drew Pinsky. Dr. Drew would do our reunions once after every season. So we'd all get together, and whether it's New York or LA, and I could keep in communication with him, and he would help me. He'd say, here's how we can try to do this, do that. And then on stage also, we would always he would pull things out of him. I don't know if he ever made her cry. He always tried to make her cry, but she's pretty good at fighting that one back. So I don't know that there was physical abuse. That really never came into play much. I'm sure there might have been some. But in my mind also, mental abuse leaves bruises that no one can see. And I think it's probably is far harder to recover from and can last a long, long time. So it also comes up, why didn't you just lay down the law? Say, you cannot see him. You're a father, she's a teenager, she's in your house. But it's not that easy. It might work for a while, it might work for 2 weeks, a week. But teenagers are rebellious. So first of all, laying down law on them doesn't always work. You have a family dynamic there that you have to try to keep alive a little bit, as far as the baby's father and this type of thing. But then also, even if we did get it going, then would come the gaslighting. You know, you're ruining our family. You're taking the father away from that child. You know, you are splitting up this family. It's your fault. And there's no manual for this parenting situation. You know, she hit the point of having absolutely no self-esteem. And that was certainly the low point, the rock bottom. And I believe that in our case, which is totally not like most cases, MTV was actually maybe our saving grace. They forced her to confront her demons. They forced her to discuss things with me on camera, painful as that was to a national audience. And eventually forced her to see what everybody saw, that it was time for her to get away. And we let her fall. We let her fall countless times. And we didn't always catch her. We would always be there to pick her up. You know, she did know that always her family was going to be there. So eventually these clouds cleared in her head, and she saw what we all saw. It was time to move. So she bought a house, raised her daughter without him. I started to see the old Chelsea that I used to see, the fun. She was living the single parent life, and I totally acknowledged that her single parent life was far better than most single mothers. You know, financially, she never had to struggle from MTV. But these struggles, they're not all financial. She would still relapse, start talking to him, that type of thing. She would still hear things that he was saying about her out in the public. And she would lapse talking into him again, but that never worked out too well. So she just gradually got further and further away from me. But she never kept Aubrey from seeing her father. She never tried to break that up. She always let him have his visitation and whatnot. And more often than not, he might not show, which then starts the whole dynamic for the child of a deadbeat dad. But Aubrey, she always got first in her life. She never bad-mouthed him in front of her. She always took good care of her little family. So she still longed for that fairy tale ending, just like we all do. But she finally realized that it wasn't going to be with him. She settled in with her life. She filmed her life as she needed to for MTV. She went to school, she got a job, carried on, but she still knew in her deepest heart that nobody wanted her. So if you follow the show, you know that for her, the fairy tale came true. She found a man that took her as she is. She's now married, she has 2 more kids. The husband treats her like a princess. All she's missing is her little white picket fence, but she does have a pig named Pete. So for her, she's having her happily ever after. And we thank God for that every day, because that's not always the case. So how do we relate this to dentistry? I mean, this is a dental thing. How do we identify abuse and neglect or violence in dentistry? Well, for me, watching this and going through it, I learned to identify the subtle signs. The subtle signs of the people that are lying and whatnot. We can all identify the obvious signs. The bruising, the broken teeth, the black eyes, all accompanied by some outlandish story. The subtle things, the little eyes, the petechiae eye, the stuff that Deb was all showing you, those little telltale hints. One of my patients would never come back to the operatory without her partner. I learned later on that he would not let her come back without him, and have a chance to speak to someone in a confidential setting. Those situations where you ask a patient or a child, hey, how did this happen? And the first thing they do is they look over at their parent or their partner in the corner with a scared look. Those always scare me. I've talked to patients who admitted abuse. And as I was getting this ready, one came to mind. I convinced her to get help. She came in, she had the broken tooth, the black eye, and she reported it. And as a team at our office, we felt, this is great. We helped someone and whatnot. At her next 6-month recall, she was back with him. And I didn't get the whole story. Did they get counseling? Did they get therapy? Are they still together now? This was probably about 5 years ago. But what I know is that as a team, my office was there, and we did help someone and tried to help anyway. So you have to let your patients know that you're there for them, that you're willing to help. Have a line on that medical history saying, is someone hurting you? And I'm not as outright. I wouldn't say, who's hurting you? I would just, how can I help you? A simple question like that. And if you can, lots of times they will take advantage. We have a unique situation in our field in that we have a patient in a confidential environment for up to an hour, twice a year. I have patients that I've known for 30 years. You get to know them. I ask about their family, I bullshit with them, it's a good relationship. But this also allows you to notice the changes, as they keep coming in. If they've always been that happy-go-lucky person, and then they come in and they're quiet and their face is down, you can go ahead and ask, hey, you're looking sad. Is there anything I can do to help you? It may not be domestic violence, of course. It may be that their parents are dying. It may be that their teenager is wild and causing trouble. It may be their teenager is pregnant. For us, we may not think it's our business, but we are care providers. We're not just dental care providers. We care for the whole patient. You can talk to them. Again, it might not be domestic violence. Hey, having teenagers is the hardest time of your life. Here's what worked for me. Let them know that they're not alone. Everyone in here thinks that everybody else has a perfect life, but none of us have perfect lives. We all have train wrecks at one point or another, but these people think that they are the only one, and nobody else could understand because they don't have troubles, but we all have troubles. So open up the door, and hopefully they'll come in and talk to you. So we've identified some ways to find abuse in our patients. And the other thing I just thought I would throw in here is that we often work closely with our team in an office. And we might see signs of abuse in team members. Often our teams are together more hours in a day with the office than they are with their own family. And when you see people day in and day out, and you spend that much time with them, you start to notice changes. Again, there's the obvious signs: bruises, wild excuses, long sleeves, high collars. But I hope you all can work in a team. I sound like I was down south at all, because I'm in Texas. I hope you all have a team that's close enough where you can lean on each other. Most of my team members have been with me for some time. We've been through weddings, marriages, and I'll take my team any day. If it's obvious problems with your team members, go ahead and address it. If it's a little subtle, just make sure that door is open and they know they can come in. And I learned there's not always an easy answer. We may know the right answer, but it's seldom easy. Abusers have many faults, but they are very good at abusing. They know how to hurt people in a way to make that the victim thinks that it is the victim's fault. And that's what crushes these victims. And I know you hate the word victim, but I'm using it.
It's okay.
I can certainly look back and see a lot of things that I did wrong and how I handled things. I did things I shouldn't have done. I know I enabled to a certain extent because I couldn't be strict enough or whatever. And I did some things that I knew I shouldn't have done, but I did them. When I say that abusers are very good at abusing, that's not a compliment by any means, of course. Words can be far more damaging than fists. Bruises fade with time, but these words last forever. Someone might not remember that bruise they had on their arm 5 years ago, but they'll sure as hell remember it when they were told that they were the ugliest person they'd ever seen. Words get into your being and change you. It still haunts me that my youngest daughter went through hell, and I let it happen. But could I have stopped it? I don't know if I could have stopped it. But I know I could have done better. Damn it. You know, we're lucky. For us, it's turned out great. But that's not always normal. Okay, that's good.
Wasn't as hard as you thought it was, right?
Yes. So anyway, that's our story. You can have that back.
Wasn't that amazing? He's, you know.
Well, you guys are way tougher than kindergarten.
We're going to stay nice and comfortable over here.
Okay.
So, pretty remarkable, huh?
Well, hopefully that, I mean, not everybody knows the show, obviously, but hopefully that people that kind of saw it can kind of see a little bit behind the scenes of what we had. I mean, it did help us, actually, to be on the show. It really forced her to address some things that it's not easy to address, but, you know, the producers say, you got to talk about this. And no, it's not scripted. Everyone always asks. You know, they might tell us what they wanted us to talk about. They say, you know, you guys have to get together and talk about child support, whatever, visitation, things like that. But for us, it really helped us. You know, she had to face up to some things that would have been hard on just a one-on-one basis. So.
Take a deep breath.
Okay.
You did it. And they love you. I mean, Does anybody have any questions before we go into the last segment? Yes.
Fire away.
Is the father involved at all with his daughter at this point?
Very little. He has to have supervised visitation in a visitation center, and he set up 2 visits to do it, and he didn't show up for either. But she does go to his parents' house, so her grandparents, once a month. I think it's overnight, I can't remember. But he's not allowed to be there at the same time. But he does, he does go to her sporting events, and I think he goes to lunches at her school every once in a while when his mom drags him there.
Okay.
You had said something previously about helping a victim, and how did you handle that situation in your office?
Which situation?
The one that you had helped that victim with, I think like 5 years ago is what you said.
So basically, she had already reported it, and we were just kind of helping with her and giving her. We did not actually. She had already reported it before she came to us. She was coming to us. She'd already been to the hospital and whatnot. Basically, it was more than just that we were there to support her, and like I say, my team's all in. They made her feel as good as they could, and let her know that we were there for her.
I think that's the opportunity that we have as healthcare providers in our field, because we have so much time with the patient that our patients trust us and they confide in us, and that openness is there. If you don't believe me, don't you gain like 5 pounds between October and New Year's? I mean, they want to be loved, and they want to love you too. And sometimes dentistry gets a hard rap because of whatever reason, but I think our profession is so fortunate because we have that one-on-one ability to communicate that type of care with the patient. So setting up more offices that are prepared to communicate and ask some of those open-ended questions that were on the presentation is good. And if anybody wants, some of the slides already, just have to email me. But having Dr. With, obviously is a great honor for me, and I hope that you enjoyed his company. He's going to be here. He's going to stay on stage and answer some questions. But this phase of what we want to talk about right now is geared towards technology and how technology is going to work against those of us who are in relationships such as coercive control or domestic abuse and things like that. But I think just learning about it, and the one key point that you said is, and what we probably don't do often enough, is update our medical history to include timely, relevant issues. And do you feel safe? Are you in a safe environment? Have you had, an injury, or do you live in fear, or, have you tested positive for HPV? Have you tested for this or that or the other? I think those things, our profession isn't always looked upon to get those answers, but we're just as equally responsible and accountable for those type of issues that happen with the tissues, whether they're behind two lips or anywhere else. So I think checking your medical history when we go back to work is something that we need to discuss with our team members.
And often people might check a box for something that they wouldn't tell you face to face. So they're subconsciously giving you that little invite to ask them.
Right. Awesome. So we're just stay put if that's all right with you.
Right.
Okay. I do want to talk about some of the apps that are on, we have out there in order to feel secure. I certainly had to use some of them because when I found out that my ex was pretty much monitoring me, we found a GPS tracking device on my car because we shared the same driveway. So if I was away somewhere or he would get up extra early, there was a tracking device that was found. It was very, very small, looked like a thimble. Anyway, but in order to keep communication, whether you're talking with a family member or somebody that is your safe person, these are some of the apps that are out there that you can look at because, when you do things on your phone and you upload it to a cloud, they never go away. You know that. So sometimes you don't want to have your conversations noted because they can break in through your Wi-Fi. AH and I still share the same Wi-Fi, and he knows he can hear the conversations I'm having through Wi-Fi on the phone. And he insisted that we have the same Wi-Fi. And then I realized why. So now I just have conversations and make sure stuff up. That was a slip. So there's ones like Telegram, there's ones like WhatsApp, I'm sorry. There's one called Threema. And if I can find them on the internet, you can find them on the internet. The level of awareness that I want us to have is just not for us or to help somebody that may come to our practice, but I want you to think about kids. Oh my Lord. My 7-year-old niece knows more about the iPhone than I ever will. Can get on Instagram, so we almost have to keep ahead of them or keep accountable. So you have parental controls on your phone. How many of you have an iPhone or an Android? It really doesn't matter because it works for both. I didn't know this until after I got hit. But if you have your phone and your phone's locked or you put your little fingerprint on it so your kids can't get into it and run up your data, I sound like Southern, didn't I? If you press the on and off button 5 times quickly, it pings the nearest, it doesn't matter, like my phone is from Florida, I could ding it here and the nearest police, fire, and fire rescue will be dinged right here. And they'll come on the phone and they'll ask you, what's your emergency? Police, medical, or fire. So that's why, you don't have to worry about putting your finger on it or unlocking your phone. Just press it 5 times. Let's see if I can do it right now.
I did not know that.
Well, I won't do it because they'll come on it and we'll get in big trouble. Under One Roof will kick me out. But those are just things that I learned along the way you would never ever think about. But have your phone, have your phone scanned for those apps where you can have the tracking, find your friend. I don't know what it is on Android, but there's something very similar to that. If you share the same Wi-Fi, you have an iCloud account, change all your passwords. All your passwords. Okay? Everything needs to be changed. When we look at an escape plan, people, said to me, why are you staying around for so long? Because I had to have a strategic plan in order to leave, because I learned how narcissistic and controlling he was. So you want to create an opportunity where, the first thing I did was learn what the laws were for divorce, and then I created my strategy, because I had to build my case so I would get what I deserved in divorce, which in Florida is 50-50. But create an opportunity where you have an escape plan and you can share it with somebody, and they are accountable to you and you're accountable to them, and they're accountable to you. And I had 2 people from my church that were willing to do that. And we also had a code word that I would text if I felt fearful while I was still in the marital home, even though I was on the opposite side. And it was ICE AH. ICE AH. Okay? Create an opportunity to understand in your own house, if you were hit in your other side of the house, where's your escape plan? Okay? He hit me in the hallway between our master bedroom, his master bedroom, and the only place for me to go was out the sliding glass door by the pool. And I was afraid, I better not go that way in case I passed out because I was bleeding, had a concussion, and I'd fall in the pool and I'd drown, and he'd say, oh, my wife drowned. He'd be off the hook again. Okay? So create an opportunity, even if it's not looking at divorce, you have a wonderful family, but you have a fire in your house. Do you know what your fire escape plan is for your family? Do you practice it? You have to do the same thing when you're creating an opportunity to get away from a bad person. People always ask me, why did you take paperwork? Like, why didn't you take your favorite dress or shoes or your bag? Because all that's just material stuff. That can be replaced. And we have the best thrift shops in Florida, so if you ever want to come, let me know. But the important papers, everything can be digitized. And even if you don't need it for this type of environment or this type of situation, what would happen if a tornado came or a hurricane came to your house, God forbid, caught on fire? Do you already have those papers in a digital format? And do you have another copy for your accountability partner? It's very important to know, okay? I found out by photocopying stuff 2 years before my exit strategy that his biological son wasn't his name wasn't on the birth certificate. And then I found the ex-wife's phone number, and I called her up and asked her. Imagine that conversation, okay? Think about if you're creating an opportunity in your teams, like Doctor was saying, that you remember the children, and especially, or not just especially, and especially pets. There's a lot of shelters in Florida that now will accept families with pets. A lot of them don't. And sometimes kids are attached to their pets and their toys more than they are attached to the father, the mother, the grandfather, the grandmother, okay? Think about easy things to pack. I always had bathing suit, pajamas, toothbrush, toothpaste, beach towel, wipes, chapstick, dry shampoo, Vaseline, and toilet paper in my car. Because I could always go to the beach and swim and relax. And then at the beach, there's always a shower. I can take a shower. Not so good. You can't shave at the beach. It's okay. Okay? Safety plans. It's important that you don't underestimate what's going to happen when whoever decides to leave. Mine changed the locks on every door. Couldn't even get back into the property that I owned. And how do you deal with that emotional disappointment? It's important to ask questions. If your abuser is abusing you and they know the first person you're going to go to is your family, your mother, father, sister, brother, whoever's in the vicinity, be leery of them stalking them as well. I chose not to involve my family. My family lives in Pennsylvania, but he knew who my church was. My church is, I could walk to my church. And he would often stalk me at my church. I would go there early because I would feel safe, and then a parishioner would come in and say, oh, we just saw AH's pickup truck. It's struck by lightning, but remember what your surroundings are to be, who you're going to involve in this journey, because trust me, it's a long journey. Don't forget the doggies. If you are staying at your house, I encourage you, I have a Ring doorbell. I was looking at it incessantly yesterday because his sister is now down and they're taking stuff out of my marital home, and my Ring doorbell is now videotaping it. And I'm watching stuff walking out of my house, and I did react. And then I just took a step back and I'm like, it's stuff. That stuff for me have to move out. It hurt me, and I know the two things that he's specifically going to go after is the icons that my grandmother left me when she passed away, and her pots and pans. Everything else can go away. I can buy another couch. I can buy whatever was in the bags. But those are the things he's going to me with. So I have to prepare myself for that. Think about how you change the locks on your doors. Do you have an alarm system? Do you have security cameras? Do you have hidden cameras? You have to be conscious of that, cognizant of that. Think about when your child is going to school. Who is their emergency phone call? Is it your soon-to-be ex? Is it the partner you're trying to get away from? When he hit me, the worst part was that the police didn't allow him to come to the hospital, but he was still listed as my emergency contact, so guess who they called to come pick me up? And I was begging the nurse. I thought he went to get $20 so I could go because I didn't have anything. I was unconscious. They wheeled me off. Apparently they're very good-looking paramedics. Cut my shirt, having the EKG and IV put in me, and I didn't have anything with me. I didn't know what my name was for almost 9.5 hours. And when they finally came to, apparently my sister called. I didn't even know I had a sister back then. But I do have a sister, but back I was with the concussion so severe, I didn't know anything. And the nurse walked out, and the guy in the wheelchair came in. I'm like, all right, good. He's going to get me $20 to go to my pastor's house, my priest's house, which I knew exactly where it was. And they wheeled me out, and he was right there. He's like, get the F in the truck. What did I do? Got out the F in the truck. Went home, barricaded myself in the door, and then cried myself to sleep on the floor, basically underneath the mattress, because I was so petrified of what he was going to do next to me. And then I left 2 days later when he went to work. Find a lawyer who's knowledgeable about this. And again, look for your social services. The unfortunate thing is that when I was making money, you don't qualify for care. I couldn't even get free medical care because I was married to somebody who works for the post office, and I should have gotten care from him, but he took that from me. Okay? When is the safest time to leave? Morning, night, when they're at work? You know, do you leave when they're going to Costco and you know they're going to be gone for 3 hours? Or do you just walk out after dinner one night? You have to create an opportunity where you understand what the ramifications are for those actions. So check who your emergency contacts are. Check who that spouse is. And again, these are all things that we could print out and show you and share with you, and you can have it for your team members. So if anybody comes in and say, hey, listen, you know, we see changes, we're concerned, our office is here to take care of you, how can we help? Maybe some of these ideas will help you. Get off social media. My attorney said nothing good comes out of social media, so that's why I went down. But the issue with going down on social media is that you lose your business. So I had to create privacy separations on Facebook and LinkedIn and everything else like that. Did it work? No. Because Facebook wants to know everything about everything about everything. So they still find me. Hi. I'm here in Dallas. My favorite Staten Island community. Okay? The other thing is, who do you tell you're leaving? I'll be honest with you, for those of you who met my parents in 2016, they started at the second round when I got my award. My parents have a very hard time with this. I actually haven't talked to my parents since February 3rd. I just don't know how to deal with it. But I have to allow them to process it because I have what we call boundaries. And I won't allow them to say, you should have stayed, you should have worked hard, you should have done this. I did everything I possibly could. They don't get it, but that's okay. I gave them 53 years of my life. Now the rest of it's mine. I don't love them any less. I don't love them any less. I just respect myself in this time and space where I have to take care of me. So when they get older, I got to take care of them. But that's the point. That's where I got it. This time last year, I wasn't like that at all. Create an opportunity where you know where your local facilities are, whether it's a shelter, whether it's a safe place. And in as much as the police are fabulous and the judicial system is fabulous, sometimes it doesn't work so well for us. It's very hard for them to understand, especially policemen, men and women, because I've had them both come to the house, to understand what you're going through, because they deal with other things, and getting knocked out is not really high on their priority list. Okay, some people it is, some people it isn't. If it's that bad, just leave. Well, where would you like me to go? Leave money, extra set of keys, copies of credit cards, copies of your will, copies of your blood type, copies of anything that if you could not speak, that person who you entrust with can have access to. Okay? Change the beneficiary of your will. That was the second thing I did the day after I filed for divorce. Change the beneficiary of my will. Because if I croaked, I didn't want him to get anything. Okay. This is a kind of a weird thing to say, because before or during an attack, but before any attack happens, create an exit strategy. The bedroom that I was in the marital home before I got to we have a guest house, before I got access to the guest house, it was the dumbest room to pick. There's no way to get out of it. So pick wisely if you're in that type of situation. If you have to hide somewhere with your children, show your children how to blockade the door from the inside so nobody from the outside comes in, but also show them how to unblock it so they don't have, lock themselves in and they're scared about it even if they're playing. Always have a bag packed. I hate to tell you, even today, I always have a bag packed in my car. Again, identify neighbors, and it'd be really interesting to know how many of your neighbors have security cameras. So I asked all my neighbors in the surrounding area if any of them had security cameras, and all three of my neighbors, I never even saw them. I didn't even know the ones that were in my house were live. He just said, oh, they're just there as a deterrent. They were live. He was watching everything I was doing. I left one day, no kidding, to sell my wedding dress, my engagement ring, and my veil. And I went up to the church to donate because nobody would buy it. And his attorney called my attorney and said, where's Deborah? My attorney's like, I don't know. So he called me. He's like, where are you? I said, I just left St. Vincent's. He goes, what are you doing there? And I'm like, why do you care? He goes, he called him AH too. AH's attorney just called, wanted to know what you're doing with your wedding dress. I was like, Jesus, Mary, you're doing something. You can't even go to church to donate something. And he knows where you're at. So again, you have to kind of get it in your mind that you have to be like a Sherlock Holmes. You have to be really creative. Have that code word with the person. If you're in danger, 5 quick taps on your phone will contact emergency. That's the first thing you should ever do. And then contact your people that who are going to be your safeties to come and help you. And most of all, trust your instincts. If you know somebody that's in a bad situation, create a safe environment in order for them to feel that they can trust you enough to get that help. And sometimes the help isn't as long and drawn out as my journey still is. It may just that they need a hug, or they need a warm meal, or they need a place to sleep for a couple days. I would do for you, I know you would do for me and for anybody else. Things to think about in finality is that one, nobody's to blame. I don't blame myself that I married him. I did blame my father, but that was just deferring. I should have been strong enough within myself to determine what I wanted and get away from that subservient umbilical cord. My mom gave birth, but my dad kept the umbilical cord. And I always joke about that in my lectures because I love my family, but I had to cut that and get away from it. Recognize that you do have a right to live a wonderful life. It's wonderful. And Jackie said to me even this morning, she goes, you look beautiful. And I almost said a negative statement back to her. And I said, thank you very much. So again, listen to when people are complimenting you and just say, oh, don't discard it. We have to embrace that. That's what fuels us. It's not being conceited, it's not being selfish, it's being real. And that's what our world needs now, is people that are willing to be like Doctor, and of course his wife and his family, to show the vulnerabilities. I don't like everything that's on TV. I pick and choose what I like to watch. But it's being in an environment with caring people like you, my friends, my colleagues, my new friends, you know, to share this with and to experience this with. And I can tell you, just by looking out, and it's a lot brighter up here with the lights on, but just when we were down on the floor level, I could look into people's eyes and I could see the changes that it was making. I could see the people that were shedding a tear because it resonates in some way, shape, or form. We know that emotional abuse, I mean, we shared a lot more about emotional abuse in this particular topic because that's the thing that's so misunderstood. There's a lot of people that would get an emotional response back to it and react in a physical way. You know, you're stupid, and you know, you knock the person out or whatever it may be. But it's more important to know what it's like to have a vulnerability to accept people as they are. Now, I can't tell you I don't despise AH. That's something that I have to process through. I'm not a person that is full of hate or whatever, hate or have revenge for a person. At this point, I wish him no good. Kind of don't wish him bad, but I want him to be brought to justice with the laws that he's broken. And I'm not going to stop, because if I stop, then there's going to be a number 4. When number 1 told me I was number 3, I had to find out who number 2 was, and she actually helped me because I couldn't find her. So it's not a matter of, I'm not doing it out of spite, I'm not doing it because I don't want to let go. I'm doing it because he messed my life up. How dare you? But I also was weak where I couldn't help myself until other people pulled me out of it. And if we can empower other people to help pull you across that line, then everything we shared today is so much worth it. And I hope what we shared today is worth it. Find people that you can talk to and support you. Get involved. You know, hold your partner responsible and accountable. It's all about the way we communicate. There's a terminology right now called gray word, and it's the reverse of the silence treatment. It's being, you're this, okay. You're that, okay. So it's like your negative statement and just saying, oh yeah. Where are they going to go with that? They go mute because you don't engage in that emotional attacking stuff. Okay? Obviously, don't give up. I'm not giving up, and he knows that, but he's running out of tactics, so it's pretty good. Keep looking for someone who will listen. We've had many talks, and hopefully have one after this, and we'll have talks with you guys as well. Believe in your strengths, and remember that you are your own best source of knowledge. Hopefully, do you think that you learned a little bit more about domestic violence and coercive control and narcissistic behavior just by participating in this event? I hope so. I hope it was good. Never ever give up on yourself and give up on anybody else. I'm blessed. My goddaughter's mom, hi Deb, is here. She's from Ontario. She's a dental hygienist, a restorative dental hygienist. She has blessed me with 3 gorgeous goddaughters. I have another one, Courtney, and a godson, Lewis. And when I visit, we all sit around the table and we do this AG. So imagine this is an A, and then G, which means acknowledge your greatness. And that's something that when we talk about it and the girls get involved with it, it takes away the negative. So you don't say, oh God, the teacher didn't, I failed my test and my teacher, or Johnny was teasing me about my hair. It takes away the negativity and it makes them channel what good happened to them. And then the question is, well, what's the greatness about Sophia, or what's the greatness about Daddy, or what's the greatness? And so we go around the table and we talk about what's great about what happened that day, 1 to 2 things, and then what's great about my sister, like what are we thankful for, what are we grateful for? And one was like the food, or Nuna being here, or going out to dinner because Nuna is here, and all this. Nuna means godmother, Greek, by the way. But we acknowledge it, we change that dynamics of the negativity that we verbal vomit over each other from a lousy day at work. So never ever ever forget. There we are. There's a younger picture. Those are my goddaughters, Gracie, Christina, and Sophia's, and on the end with the cross, I love them to death. But those are my girls. So we're at the end of the program. I do want to have a couple of little disclosures. If you haven't been by Crown Seating, I just want to let you know the Crown Seating, Steve Knight, who should be here at the booth, has donated the chair. They just brought it up. And typically we do $10, but we're going to do just by donation note. If you'd like to give a donation to win the chair, whatever you want to donate, it's all going to go to the shelter that I went to because they just had a fire a couple days ago because one of the residents had a tracking device on her car, and her husband and his brother came and torched her car, which caused some damage in it. So we're going to try to raise some money to get them back into the shelter. It's called Safe Space. I can't tell you where it is because we're not allowed to tell you because anyway, we're not. It's just confidential. We're not allowed to tell people where it is. But I just want to thank Cindy and Steve for donating that. So if anybody wants to win the chair and take it home with you today, that's great. It's a donation. And of course, this was general session. This is Dr. Randy's contact information as well as mine. So if you have any questions or you have any constructive ways to make this program better, we would certainly appreciate that because we still want to share it with as many organizations as we can. This is a general session, so you know. Those are all our disclosures that we just have to do that for AGD. And you want to go back one? Okay. And don't worry about saying my last name, it's just Debbie Z. I promise if I ever get married again, I won't change my name. I always tell people, if you can say Snuffleupagus, this week can say Zafiropoulos. Okay, everyone get it? Okay. And we're at, oh, that's what you're looking for. I'll show something. That's your code. This is our awesome AV people.
Free socks.